The film opens up as a moderately aged man named Mark gets up promptly in the first part of the day and starts sprucing up. Peculiarly, he sees that the water supply and power in his loft are out. Regardless of this, Imprint some way or another gets prepared for work. However, as he is going to leave, he finds the primary entryway immovably locked. At the same time, he additionally loses his telephone organization. At the point when he takes a stab at opening the entryway, that's what he sees: it has been closed with a sealant from outside. Upset, Imprint goes to the window to get some outside air, yet shockingly, indeed, even it is fixed closed. Right then, at that point, he sees others in the inverse building beating on their windows for help. He likewise sees a gathering wearing hazardous materials suits and meandering around the neighborhood. Overlooking this, Imprint snatches his sledge and attempts to tear the entryway open, in any case, winds up harming himself severely. All of a sudden, somebody from the opposite side of Imprint's room breaks the wall and enters his condo. A hot-tempered kid, Sergey, and his little sibling, Niku, barge in. Sergey right away goes to mind the windows, however finds out that Imprint is additionally caught experiencing the same thing as him. Before long, a nearby couple, Sally what's more, Aiden, additionally get through the opening in the wall. Maybe somebody has locked the whole floor from outside. Aiden, being an administration official, is frightened about the circumstance and predicts that something terrible will occur. He frantically takes a stab at calling for help, however without any result. In the interim, the radio of the loft rings and a voice illuminates them to remain quiet while the clinical staff is attempting to take control of the circumstance. This concerns the all-around frightened bunch much more. Afterward, Sally, being a medical caretaker, treats Imprint's injured hand and puts some joint on it. As the two have casual banter, Mark unexpectedly recalls his old neighbor, Enid. Burning through no time, he arranges Sergey to separate the wall to her loft. What's more, adventures inside. He tracks down her lying on the floor, however fortunately, Enid is simply dozing. In the following scene, the whole gathering stands by the window to really figure out what's occurring. They notice the hazardous materials suit wearing laborers building transitory clinical tents in the neighborhood. In the meantime, the radio rings once more, and this time, the voice proposes everybody stay inside as there has been a poisonous gas spill. Nonetheless, Aiden does not get it. He accepts that the specialists are attempting to conceal something serious from them. Mark likewise recognizes 2 or 3 clinical laborers splashing sanitizers in the structure and accompanying some contaminated individuals to their camp. Unexpectedly, when a man attempts to liberate himself and take off, he has chance by a rifleman. This shocks everybody looking from their windows. Not long after, the hazardous materials wearing representatives begin bursting inside neighboring lofts. When the inhabitants don't conform to the conventions, they are hauled out. Seeing this, Mark and the gathering understand that the clinical staff can show up at their condo anytime. Subsequently, they begin conceptualizing thoughts to break the entryway. What's more, escape. After some time thinking about a conceivable arrangement, Imprint recalls that he has some destructive synthetic substances in his loft that can be used to soften the sealant and eventually open the entryway. The gathering promptly begins looking for the synthetic compounds. When they find it, Imprint blends them and makes a combination. He then, at that point, pours it on the lower part of the principal entryway and shockingly, the arrangement works. The sealant is in a split second relaxed. What's more, after the gathering pushes the entryway energetically, it at long last opens. Following this, the gathering begins planning an arrangement so they can arrive at well-being without being gotten. One thing's without a doubt, they have to know about the expert rifleman stowing away at the top of the structure. While they are examining the countermeasures, Enid understands that Niku has disappeared. Therefore, everybody forsakes the arrangement and starts searching for the kid. In the meantime, a panicked Niku has crept down through the air vent. He arrives at another floor and sees 2 or 3 hazardous materials wearing staff attempting to persuade a lady to accompany them. They even infuse her with a narcotic, yet out of nowhere, the lady begins hacking abundantly and falls oblivious. Maybe the air has been tormented with something lethal. In the interim, Imprint at last finds Niku and tosses an improvised rope to pull him out of the vent. Be that as it may, before the kid can get it, the hazardous materials wearing staff spot him and pull him away. Dreading for his sibling's life, Sergei snatches a home run stick and runs down the stairs, while Mark follows him intently. Before long, the two methodology the hazardous materials folks and a maddened Sergei lashes out at one of them. The man passes on the spot, and after this, Sergei gets the other staff part. What's more, powerfully takes her to their loft. Sally goes through her assets and tracks down 2 or 3 smoke projectiles. This makes her suspect that there is something amiss with whatever is going near. Mark attempts to cross-examine the female staff, however Sergei hauls her to the window and showcases her to the next individuals, with the note, "I have one." Subsequent to tying the young lady up, Imprint talks with her delicately and asks her what's happening. The young lady presents herself as Hazel and illuminates the bunch that they are there to help. Hearing this, Mark attempts to eliminate her defensive hazardous materials suit, however, she moves frightened and disregards him. This persuades Imprint that their place has been tainted with an infection of some kind or another. He then, at that point, undermines her to uncover everything, and presently, with her life on the line, Hazel at long last begins talking. She uncovers that the whole region has been tormented with a destructive infection that can kill individuals in no time. The side effects incorporate energetic hacking, trouble in breathing, and even visual impairment. In spite of the fact that the researchers have been working eagerly to find a fix, nothing decisive has been found. Mark asks regarding the reason why all the correspondence frameworks have been closed down, to which Hazel answers that the public authority doesn't need the overall population to be aware of the infection. The more individuals alarm, the more troublesome it will be to contain the infection. She too uncovers that individuals in the room have a 50-50 possibility getting the infection. Once more hearing this, Sergei ends up being irate. He rapidly snatches a blade and removes her defensive clothing. This unnerves Hazel, so she contacts her pocket and takes out an infusion. Yet, before she could utilize it, Sergei grabs it from her hand and keeps it with himself. As everybody checks her in dismay out, Hazel uncovers that the immunization is still in its trying mode, and there's no affirmation that it will work. Consequently, the best thing to do right currently is to remain inside until the specialists deal with the circumstance. Around evening time, while the entire gathering is examining the actions to escape the spot, Hazel sneaks her hand from the zip lock and attempts to get away. Yet, before she could arrive at the entryway, Sergei pins her to the ground and starts beating her. Mark attempts to stop him, however winds up confronting the anger of Sergei. The upheaval at long last stops when Sergei unintentionally slaps Niku and makes him cry. Afterward, the gathering sees a furious crowd of individuals walking towards their structure. It shows up as if they additionally have any desire to face Hazel to learn about the current condition. At this point, the wide range of various hazardous materials wearing staff have either been killed or pursued away. Terrified, Hazel advises the gathering to keep out the horde at any costs, as they could have been tainted with the infection. This alerts the gathering and they rapidly block the entry with a weighty item. Before long, the horde likewise shows up and begins beating on the entryway. Sally goes close to the entryway and attempts to quiet them down, however rather gets hit on the neck by a messed up piece of glass. With time expiring, Sergei tosses the smoke bomb at the furious individuals and hauls Sally to their loft. Tragically, it is as of now late and Sally has lost a ton of blood. Despite the fact that Hazel makes an honest effort to save her, she can't. This demolishes everybody, particularly Aiden, who breaks down and goes to the next room. In the accompanying scene, after the gathering wraps Sally's body with a piece of fabric, they look for Aiden yet can't find him anyplace. Incidentally, he has currently got away from the loft, wearing Hazel's hazardous materials suit. At the point when he arrives at outside, different inhabitants botch him for a clinical staff and quickly encompass him. They badger him for immunizations and begin thrashing him. All at once, the expert riflemen discharge an admonition fired, provoking everybody, with the exception of Aiden, to run away from the spot. Unfortunately, notwithstanding Aiden wearing a hazardous materials suit, he is distinguished as a contaminated patient, and shot to death. Somewhere else, Sergei goes out to really take a look at the entry, furthermore, sees a gathering of inhabitants hurrying toward them. He requests that his excess gathering move out of the room straightaway. Notwithstanding, Mark would rather not let Hazel be, so he attempts to unfasten her. In any case, before he can do as such, an irritated Sergei thumps him out with a slugger. This leaves Hazel in a problematic circumstance, with no place to stow away. After some time, Imprints recovers cognizance furthermore, races to look for Niku and the others. At the point when he looks through the window, he sees two hazardous materials folks getting ready to deliver harmful gas around the structure. Before long, he tracks down his gathering, and quickly goes after Sergei for taking him out prior. He is going to gag him to death, however Enid intercedes and quiets him down. All of a sudden, the noxious gas is delivered all over, inciting the gathering to race to the rooftop. On their way, Imprint sees the dead assortment of Hazel and becomes miserable. In the meantime, an enduring occupant from the structure approaches Sergei for help, yet is fiercely pummeled by the hot-tempered rascal. He continues to beat the man until different inhabitants swarm him and hold him hostage. Sergei checks out Imprint and shouts for help, yet at the same the last option can do nothing other than close the entryway and proceed their way to the roof. After a touch of battle, Mark at long last leads Enid and Niku to the housetop. Since it is the first time in quite a while that they are breathing natural air, they choose to rest there. The next morning, Imprint awakens and begins preparing to escape from the building. Nonetheless, when he takes a stab at waking the old Enid up, she doesn't move. It turns out that she died in her rest. Presently, with just little Niku left close by, Mark needs to safeguard him no matter what. He advises the kid to shut his eyes however long he can and imagine as though he is playing a game. Then, at that point, he conveys Niku on his back and brings him first floor. On the way, Imprint runs over a parcel of dead bodies and becomes troubled, yet, he actually continues. His assurance at last takes care of as the team effectively escapes the building. Mark searches for help yet nobody is there. Indeed, even the tainting camps have been abandoned. Abruptly, he hears a declaration going around, recommending individuals stay inside. On the off chance that anybody other than a clinical workforce is seen, they will be captured. Accordingly, Mark gets into a hazardous materials suit and continues to escape the region with Niku. Sadly, soon after a couple of moments, they are defied by a man from the contrary structure, who errs Imprint for one of the clinical staff. He makes reference to that his better half passed on due to the infection and that the specialists have taken his girl away. He then snatches Niku and focuses a sharp piece of glass at him. Mark attempts his best to cause the man to figure out that he, as well, is a non-military personnel, yet his endeavors are worthless. All of a sudden, Niku moves away from the man. In any case, Imprint isn't really fortunate. He is wounded in the stomach, and lethally injured. Distressed, Niku helps increase, and as the two leave gradually, the attacker understands his misstep. Sooner or later, they arrive at a close-by park. Furthermore, Imprint sits on a swing. He then, at that point, gives Niku his wireless and educates him to make a call when it gets network. Little Niku, neglectful that his main companion is kicking the bucket, attempts to get him up, yet, Imprint imagines that he is worn out. He tells Niku that he will go along with him not long after sleeping. The young man trusts it and progresses forward with his way, while Imprint at long last surrenders to his wounds. In the last scene, Niku is caught by a couple of hazardous materials wearing staff who infuse him with a narcotic. At the point when he wakes up, he finds himself with different youngsters his age. One of the hazardous materials wearing staff approaches him and guarantees that everything will be fine. The film closes as Niku works his phone what's more, mulls over regardless of whether to settle on a decision.